They said we were the perfect couple. The Dawsons. The kind of husband and wife you'd see in glossy real estate brochures, framed against our two-story colonial house with white shutters and a manicured lawn. On weekends, neighbors waved from across the street as we carried grocery bags or trimmed hedges, and I would smile back, performing the role expected of me. But perfection is a strange thing. It doesn't exist, not really. It's a costume stitched together by small lies, polite smiles, and silence when the truth wants to scream. I wore that costume every day. Michael thrived on it. He liked the image we projected: successful banker, devoted husband, and me, the supportive wife who baked pies for community events and arranged flowers in crystal vases. To the outside world, we looked solid, enviable even. What no one saw were the cracks forming underneath. I remember once, during a neighborhood barbecue, Mrs. Peterson leaned close to me with admiration in her eyes. "Emily, you're lucky," she whispered. "Michael is the kind of man every woman dreams of." I smiled and nodded, though inside I felt the words like glass cutting into me. Dreams, I thought, can turn into nightmares if you hold them too tightly. The truth hid itself in subtle gestures. Michael's hand on my lower back looked affectionate, but the pressure was sharp, reminding me to stand straighter, to laugh at the right moment to avoid speaking too much. His voice carried warmth when others listened, yet at home it cooled into commands dressed as casual suggestions. "Don't wear that dress, Emily. It looks cheap. Speak softer. You come across too eager. Smile more. People notice when you don't." On the surface, these were small things, nothing that screamed cruelty. But stacked together, they built a cage invisible to everyone but me. Our house was a theater stage, every room arranged for display. The living room glowed with spotless floors, polished oak furniture, and photographs that painted our life as flawless. Vacations by the sea, dinner parties with friends, anniversary celebrations. Each picture told the same story. Two people, perfectly in love. And yet, when I looked closer, I could see myself in those photographs with eyes that never reached true happiness. Behind the smiles was exhaustion, fear, and the quiet dread of making a single mistake that might shatter the fragile peace between us. One evening, as I placed dinner on the table, roast chicken with rosemary, his favorite, Michael tapped his glass with his fork. "You see, Emily," he said, raising his voice just enough for me to hear over the clink of silverware, "we have everything people want. A home, stability, respect. Don't forget that." I lowered my gaze, nodding, though something in his words chilled me. It wasn't gratitude, it was possession. As if everything, including me, belonged to him. From the outside, our life sparkled. Inside, it was fragile glass waiting for the smallest tremor to break. Sometimes, I stood at the kitchen window, staring at the neighborhood children racing bicycles down the cul-de-sac. Their laughter felt distant, unreachable. My reflection in the glass looked older than my years. My smile rehearsed. Neighbors waved. I waved back. No one saw my hand tremble. That night, lying beside Michael in the quiet hum of our bedroom, I listened to the even rhythm of his breathing. The world believed I was the luckiest woman alive. Yet something inside whispered otherwise. Perfection, I realized, could hide darkness so deep that even the brightest lights couldn't reach it. And though I didn't know it then, the cracks in our perfect home were about to widen, until secrets long buried clawed their way into the light. The neighbors waved at us again the next morning, their smiles bright as ever. Michael gave a confident nod in return, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder. To them, it must have looked like devotion. To me, it felt like weight. As soon as the front door clicked shut, the mask dropped. "Did you see the way you stood there?" Michael's voice hardened, low but cutting. "Slouched. It makes you look careless. You know how people notice these things." I swallowed my reply. I had learned that defending myself only sharpened his anger. Silence kept the peace. At least for a while. Life with Michael was built on routines that weren't mine. He decided what meals we ate, which colors suited me, how much money I could spend, and even which friends I should keep. His rules came Wrapped in the language of care. I just want the best for you, Emily, he'd say, sliding away my plate if he thought I'd taken too much. You'll embarrass yourself if you tell that story. Let me handle the conversation, he'd whisper before dinner parties. You'd be lost without me, he murmured late at night, his arm draped heavily over me. Each phrase sounded tender. To outsiders, but I knew the undertone. He owned my choices. There were days when I questioned my own perception. Michael was clever. He painted every argument as my fault. You're remembering it wrong. You're too sensitive. Stop imagining things, Emily. You're hysterical. At first I resisted, insisting on what I had seen or heard, but over time doubt settled into my bones. Was I truly exaggerating? Were my feelings unreliable? That's how gaslighting works. It reshapes your mind until you no longer trust it. Our friends never saw it. When they visited, Michael transformed into the perfect husband again. He poured wine, cracked jokes, and complimented me so sweetly that my cheeks burned, not from love but from the knowledge of how false it all was. You're glowing, Emily, our friend Lisa said once. Michael takes such good care of you. I smiled at her, but my chest ached. If I told her the truth, that his care was a leash she couldn't see, she would laugh it off. Who would believe me? Behind closed doors, though, the tension grew. Thick. One evening, as I folded laundry, Michael stepped into the room without warning. That blouse, he said, pointing at the pale blue fabric in my hands. It's too revealing. Throw it out. But it isn't, I began. His eyes flashed. I said, throw it out. I dropped it into the basket, heart hammering. He smiled then, satisfied, as if he had saved me from disgrace. Moments like that left me shaking long after he walked away. At night, lying awake, I replayed conversations in my head, searching for clarity. But all I found was the gnawing truth. I was disappearing inside this marriage piece by piece. And yet a darker thought haunted me more than the daily control. Michael wasn't just obsessed with appearances. He was hiding something. Sometimes I caught him on late-night phone calls, his voice lowered to a whisper. When I asked, he brushed it off. Work, he'd say, but his eyes avoided mine. Other times I found him staring at old boxes in the garage, quickly shutting the lids when he saw me. A cold intuition took root in me. His obsession with controlling me was only part of the story. Something deeper, something unspeakable, lurked beneath his polished smile. The next day, as I stood in the kitchen, I heard him speaking to someone outside on the phone. His tone was sharper, urgent, not the careful charm he used with clients or neighbors. I froze, straining to catch the words. She can't find out, not again. The line went quiet. Footsteps approached. I hurried back to my chores, pretending I had heard nothing. My pulse thundered in my ears. If there was one thing I was certain of, it was this. Michael's secrets were bigger than his rules, and the more I ignored them, the more dangerous they felt. I didn't yet know how soon the past he buried would rise, but I felt its shadow creeping closer. Michael's words lingered in my head. She can't find out. Not again. Not again. The phrase played on repeat, like a song I couldn't silence. It hinted at something I had never been told, something carefully hidden in the corners of his past. Michael rarely spoke of his life before me. He mentioned a college degree, a few jobs in different cities, and a family that had since drifted apart. Beyond that, his history was a locked door. I had once asked about old friends, and he brushed it off with a laugh. Too many stories, he said. You wouldn't find them interesting. But now, with those words echoing in my ears, the silence felt deliberate, like he had buried more than just memories. I found myself studying him in new ways, the way he tensed at the mention of old neighborhoods, how he avoided photographs of us that might remind him of younger years, how his expression hardened when a name from the past surfaced unexpectedly. One evening, while we were sorting through the attic, I pulled open a box marked Misc. Inside were yellowed receipts, faded notes, and a photo frame turned face down. I lifted it, brushing the dust away, and froze. The picture showed Michael, younger but unmistakably him, with his arm around a woman I had never seen. She had bright eyes, auburn hair, and a smile that radiated warmth. "Who's this?" I asked before I could stop myself. Michael's head snapped toward me. In one swift motion, he yanked the frame from my hands. "Don't touch my things," he said sharply. I blinked at him. It doesn't matter." He cut me off, his jaw tight. "She's no one." But the way his hands shook as he set the frame aside told me otherwise. That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of the woman haunted me. Who was she? A girlfriend? A fiancé? Someone he lost? I turned toward him in bed, searching for courage. "Michael," I whispered, "why don't you ever tell me about your past? About the people you knew before me?" His eyes snapped open in the dark, glinting with suspicion. "Why are you asking?" "Because I want to understand you better," I said softly. He rolled onto his back, staring at the ceiling. "My past doesn't concern you, Emily. It's finished. But the woman in that photo..." He sat up suddenly, his voice sharp. "Enough. Don't go digging where you don't belong." The room went silent except for the pounding of my heart. He had never raised his voice like that before. The following days felt heavier. Michael was restless, snapping at small things, crumbs on the counter, a misplaced set of keys, a bill delivered late. His paranoia seeped into the air we breathed. Once, I caught him pacing the garage, muttering under his breath, "She'll ruin everything. It's not over." When he saw me standing there, he froze. Then, forcing a smile, he said, "Just work stress. Don't worry." But I couldn't unhear the words. I began to piece together fragments. The phone calls at night, the hidden photograph, his sharp refusal to discuss his history. They all pointed to one truth. Michael wasn't just hiding a story. He was terrified of it resurfacing. Late one evening, during another argument, I pressed him harder. "Michael, if you love me, why can't you trust me with the truth?" His eyes darkened. "Because the truth would destroy everything." The silence that followed was suffocating. I realized then that whatever lay buried in his past was not just painful. It was dangerous. When I finally drifted into uneasy sleep, I dreamed of the woman in the photograph, her auburn hair glowing under sunlight. She was reaching toward me, her mouth opening as if to warn me of something, but the sound never came. I woke to Michael's side of the bed empty, the sheets cold. From the hallway came the faint creak of the garage door closing. I lay frozen, fear rising in my throat. Whatever secret he carried, it was alive, and it was moving closer to the surface. The bed was still cold where Michael should have been. I sat up, my chest tightening as I strained to hear. The faint groan of the garage door had already closed, but silence lingered heavy. In the house, I slipped on my robe and moved quietly down the hall. Each step felt louder than the last, echoing in the stillness of the night. When I reached the kitchen, the dim light above the sink revealed nothing, just polished counters, neatly stacked dishes, everything in its perfect place. But perfection didn't explain the emptiness beside me, or why my husband was in the garage at 2 a.m. The door creaked as I pushed it open. The garage smelled of oil and old paint. Shadows stretched long across the concrete floor, broken only by the beam of a single bulb overhead. At first, everything looked ordinary. Boxes stacked neatly, tools hung on the wall, Michael's car parked as usual. Then my eyes fell to the corner. There, near the workbench, was a dark smear against the gray concrete. Small, uneven, red-brown in color. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Blood. My first instinct was denial. Maybe it was rust, maybe spilled paint, anything but what it appeared to be. I crouched down, my fingers trembling as I hovered them above the stain. It looked too fresh to be old. The edges were still moist, glistening faintly under the light. The sound of footsteps behind me snapped me upright. "Emily." Michael stood in the doorway, his silhouette sharp against the kitchen light. His eyes narrowed as he glanced from me to the stain on the floor. "What are you doing out here?" His tone was calm, but underneath it coiled something hard. Something warning. I I couldn't sleep, I stammered. I heard you. His gaze flicked back to the floor. It's nothing. Michael, that looks like… He cut me off. Don't… His voice dropped, low and deliberate. It's oil, from the car, you're imagining things again. The word stung. Imagining. He had used it so many times before, pulling reality out from under me. But this time my eyes hadn't lied. Still, comma. I forced myself to nod, my throat dry. Right. Oil. He stepped closer, his presence filling the room. Go back to bed, Emily. I obeyed, but the weight of his gaze followed me until I shut the bedroom door. Lying awake, I replayed every detail, the color, the shine, the way. He had blocked me with his body, as if shielding the stain from my sight. If it were oil, why hide it? By morning, the garage floor was spotless. Michael had risen early, humming as he brewed coffee, as if nothing had happened. Sleep well? He asked casually, sliding a mug toward me. I forced a smile. Yes, but inside I knew something had shifted. A crack had widened. Later that afternoon, I wandered back to the garage. The corner gleamed, scrubbed cleaner than the rest of the floor. Not a trace of the stain remained. The sight chilled me more than the blood itself. Michael had erased it. Erased the proof. Erased my certainty. Just like he always did. That evening, as we prepared for dinner, I couldn't stop glancing at him, his hand steady on the knife as he chopped vegetables, his face calm, almost pleasant. But I remembered the way those same hands had clenched at the sight of me in the garage. Was I married to a man hiding secrets darker than I could bear to imagine? When the doorbell rang unexpectedly, I jumped. Michael glanced at me, then at the clock. No one should be here, he muttered. I wiped my palms on my apron, heart racing. Whoever stood on the other side of that door would become part of the story I could no longer escape. And in that moment, I realized the stain on the floor was only the beginning. The doorbell's chime cut through the kitchen like a blade. Michael's hand froze mid-motion above the cutting board, the knife glinting under the light. No one should be here, he muttered again, his jaw tightening. I wiped my damp palms against my apron and stepped toward the door. Michael's gaze burned into my back as if warning me not to open it. But curiosity, fear, really, pulled me forward. When I swung it open, a woman stood framed by the porch light. She looked to be in her late 30s with auburn hair that curled slightly at her shoulders and sharp, searching eyes. For a moment, she said nothing. She just studied me as though weighing whether to speak. Can I help you? I asked, my voice thinner than I intended. Her eyes flicked past me. Michael Dawson lives here, doesn't he? Before I could respond, Michael appeared at my side, his presence sudden and forceful. His voice cut through the air. Claire. The woman's expression hardened. So you remember me. Michael's knuckles whitened against the doorframe. What are you doing here? I think you know, she replied, her gaze steady. You can't bury the past forever. I blinked, looking between them. Michael, what is she talking about? Nothing, he snapped, his tone sharp enough to make me flinch. Then he turned back to her. Leave, now. Claire's lips curved into a bitter smile. Still pretending, I see. But secrets don't stay hidden. Not forever. The exchange left me rooted to the floor, confusion twisting inside me. Claire's words carried a weight I couldn't ignore. Michael slammed the door shut in her face, the sound echoing through the house. He turned on me immediately. Don't listen to her, he ordered. His tone was flat, controlled, but I could see the storm raging behind his eyes. She's unstable, obsessed. She's been following me for years. I swallowed hard. But she knew your name. She acted like she… He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Emily, don't let her poison you. She wants to ruin us. That's all. Later that night, I couldn't stop replaying the scene in my mind. The way he said her name, too fast, too familiar. The way her words carried not accusation, but certainty. And the fear, real and unmasked, that flickered in Michael's eyes. Who was Claire Mitchell? The next morning, I stood at the kitchen window staring across the street. Part of me expected to see her car, her figure waiting. But the street lay empty, quiet. Still, unease gnawed at me. Over breakfast, Michael acted as though nothing had happened. He asked about errands, work, the weather. His voice was calm, his smile deliberate. But when I mentioned Claire's name, his fork clattered against his plate. "I told you to forget her," he said, his tone sharp enough to cut. "If you love me, you'll drop it." I lowered my gaze, but inside a seed of doubt rooted deeper. That afternoon, while folding laundry, I found myself glancing at the photo albums in the living room cabinet. Could Claire be connected to the woman in that old photograph? The auburn-haired stranger Michael had hidden away. The resemblance was too strong to dismiss. The walls of our perfect home suddenly felt closer, as though they held answers I wasn't allowed to touch. When Michael came home late that evening, his face was pale, his shirt collar damp with sweat. "Long day?" I asked carefully. "Don't ask questions you don't need answers to," he muttered, disappearing into his study. The lock clicked shut behind him. I sat alone in the living room, the weight of silence pressing down. Claire's voice echoed in my mind. "You can't bury the past forever." And for the first time, I believed her. The stranger at my door hadn't just unsettled me. She had cracked open something Michael fought desperately to keep hidden. What I didn't know yet was that the crack had already widened enough for others to step through. And the next one would arrive wearing a badge. 2 days passed after Claire's visit, but the unease she stirred refused to fade. I tried to bury myself in chores, errands, even small talk with neighbors. Still, her warning echoed. "You can't bury the past forever." On the third morning, a knock sounded at the door, firm, deliberate, nothing like Claire's tentative arrival. Michael had already left for work. My pulse quickened as I wiped my hands on a dish towel and opened the door. A man stood there, tall and composed, wearing a dark suit and the quiet authority of someone used to being obeyed. He held up a badge. "Detective Ryan Carter," he said. His voice was calm, steady. "Are you Mrs. Dawson?" "Yes," I managed. "I'd like to ask you a few questions. May I come in?" My hands trembled as I led him to the living room. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I'm investigating a missing persons case," he began, pulling out a small notepad. "Claire Mitchell contacted us recently. She believes your husband may have information about her sister, Anna. She disappeared nearly 12 years ago." The room tilted slightly around me. I gripped the edge of the couch. "My husband? That's impossible. Michael would never." Carter's gaze held mine, unwavering. "I'm not here to accuse. I'm here to uncover the truth. Sometimes the truth is painful. Sometimes it's not what we expect." I searched for words, but my throat closed around them. Claire's face flashed in my memory, her warning sharper now. "Did your husband ever mention knowing Anna Mitchell?" The detective pressed gently. I shook my head. "No. He doesn't talk much about his past." Carter scribbled something. "In his notebook. That itself can be telling. Secrets often hide in silence." I wanted to defend Michael, to say he was a good man, respected, admired, but the words caught before reaching my lips. Images rose instead. The hidden photograph, the blood-like stain in the garage, the way Michael's voice turned cold when I questioned him. Detective Carter watched me carefully. "Mrs. Dawson, I need you to be honest. Have you noticed anything usual? Any late-night absences, strange behavior?" My heart thudded painfully. I thought of the garage at 2 a.m, the frantic phone calls, the locked study door. I thought of his warning. "Don't go digging where you don't belong." "Yes," I whispered before I could stop myself. "He sometimes disappears. At night, and there was—" I faltered, swallowing hard. "Something I can't explain." Carter leaned forward. "That's important. Even the smallest detail can matter." Fear surged through me. What if Michael discovered I had spoken against him? He would see it as betrayal. But wasn't I already betraying myself by staying silent? The detective closed his notebook gently. "I'll be frank with you. If your husband knows anything about Anna Mitchell, I will find out. My advice is to trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. His words lodged deep inside me. When he stood to leave, I followed him to the door. "Detective Carter, please," I said, my voice trembling. "If Michael has done something, if he's hiding something, what will happen?" His eyes softened, but his reply was steady. "The truth always costs something, Mrs. Dawson. The question is, who's willing to pay?" After he left, I sank onto the couch, my body shaking. Outside, the neighborhood remained deceptively calm. Children laughing, sprinklers hissing, the illusion of peace. But inside, I knew a storm was forming. Michael returned home later, smiling, asking about my day. His eyes searched mine, sharp as knives, as if he could sense the shift in me. For the first time, I couldn't meet his gaze. And for the first time, I realized my silence might not just protect him anymore, it might destroy me. The detective's words stayed with me long after he left. The truth always costs something. By the time Michael returned home that night, my nerves were stretched thin. Every sound, the rattle of his keys, the scrape of his shoes against the floor, echoed like a warning bell. He set down his briefcase and studied me. "You're quiet," he said. "What did you do today?" I hesitated. A man came by, Detective Ryan Carter. The shift was instant. His jaw clenched, eyes narrowing. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing," I replied quickly. "He asked about Anna Mitchell. He said Claire came to the police." Michael's face darkened. "Claire is obsessed. She'll drag anyone down. With her. You should have sent him away," I swallowed. "I couldn't. He showed me his badge. He asked questions I couldn't ignore." He stepped closer, his voice soft but dangerous. "What did you say, Emily? That you don't talk about your past, that sometimes you leave at night, that I don't know why." The silence that followed was suffocating. Michael exhaled, slowly, then smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You've let them poison you," he said. "Can't you see what's happening? They want to tear us apart and you're letting them." I shook my head. "Michael, I just want the truth." "The truth." His laugh was sharp, bitter. "The truth is you're ungrateful. I've given you everything. A home, security, respect. And this is how you repay me? By doubting me." His words sliced deep, twisting my fear into guilt. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'd let suspicion cloud my judgment. That's what he wanted me to believe. "I'm not ungrateful," I whispered. "But the stain in the garage, the photo, Claire's visit, how do I ignore all that?" Michael's expression hardened. "You imagine the stain. You've always been dramatic. The photo, an old college fling, meaningless. And Claire, she's desperate, unstable. You're letting lies poison your mind." His tone was calm, reasonable even, but it made me feel small, ridiculous. I wrapped my arms around myself, doubting my own memory. Still comma. The image of the blood on the floor seared into my mind. I knew what I'd seen. Michael sat on the couch, gesturing for me to join him. His voice softened, coaxing. "Emily, listen. You're tired. All this talk of detectives and missing women, it's making you paranoid. You need to trust me. Without trust, what do we have?" I lowered myself beside him, but my body stayed tense. "If I trust you, will you promise me something?" His eyes narrowed. "What?" "Tell me the truth about Anna Mitchell. Did you know her?" For the briefest moment, something flickered in his expression. Recognition, maybe fear. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "No," he said firmly. "I never knew her. And if you loved me, you'd believe me." The room spun with his words. He had twisted the question back onto me, turning suspicion into betrayal, doubt into disloyalty. I pressed my palms together to stop them from shaking. "Michael," I whispered, "I'm scared." He leaned closer, his hand brushing mine. "You're scared because they've filled your head with lies. But I can fix it. We can fix it. You just have to stop asking questions." His touch felt like both comfort and trap. My mind screamed to pull away, but my body froze. Later, when he went upstairs, I sat alone in the dim light of the living room. His words echoed in my ears, looping until I wasn't sure what was real anymore. Had I exaggerated? Had I misread everything? Or had I just been convinced to doubt the truth I already knew? Gaslighting works like that. It blurs the line between reality and imagination until you no longer trust yourself. I stared at the locked study door across the hall. If answers existed, they were in there, hidden in the shadows Michael guarded so fiercely. And for the first time, I felt the urge not just to question, but to search. The house was silent, the kind of silence that amplifies every creak of wood and whisper of air. Michael had gone to bed hours earlier, his breathing steady upstairs. I sat on the couch staring at the locked study door. His words from earlier, "Stop asking questions," pulsed in my mind. But questions demand answers, and I could no longer ignore them. I rose quietly, heart pounding as I tiptoed down the hallway. The brass handle of the study was cold beneath my palm. I twisted it slowly. Locked, of course. Michael guarded this room as if it were sacred. I hesitated, then moved toward the kitchen drawer where we kept spare tools. My fingers closed around a thin piece of metal, a forgotten letter opener. Kneeling at the study door, I pressed it into the lock, my hands trembling. After a few tense moments, the mechanism clicked. The door creaked open. The air inside smelled faintly of dust and old paper. A single lamp cast a pale glow over the mahogany desk, stacked neatly with unopened bills and notebooks. At first glance, everything seemed ordinary, but I knew Michael too well. His secrets wouldn't sit in the open. I rifled carefully through drawers, my breath shallow. Receipts, bank statements, household records, all innocent. Until I found an envelope wedged beneath a ledger. It was addressed to Michael Dawson in faded ink, but the return name made my blood run cold. Claire Mitchell. Hands shaking, I unfolded the letter. The words blurred at first, but as I blinked, they came into focus. "You can't keep running from what you did to Anna. You owe me the truth. If you don't, I will find a way to make you confess. Anna, Claire's sister, the missing woman Detective Carter had spoken of." I pressed a hand to my mouth, fighting to steady myself. Michael had kept this letter hidden. I dug deeper, opening the lower desk drawer. Inside was a small box. I lifted the lid and froze. Photographs. The first showed Claire, years younger, standing with her arm around a woman with auburn hair, the same woman from the attic photograph. Anna. Another photo showed Michael with them both, his smile bright, his arms slung around Anna's shoulders as if they were close. A chill clawed through me. He had lied. He did know her. At the bottom of the box was something worse, a newspaper clipping. "Local woman missing. Search for Anna Mitchell continues." Michael had underlined parts of the article in pen, though I couldn't make sense of why. My pulse thundered in my ears. I shoved the photos back into the box, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. Each piece fit together like fragments of a nightmare. Claire's warning, Michael's evasions, the blood on the garage floor. But it still didn't form the whole picture. What had happened to Anna? And why was Michael so desperate to erase? A sudden sound made me stiffen. The creak of a floorboard upstairs. Michael stirred. I snapped the drawer shut, extinguished the lamp, and slipped out of the study, easing the door closed behind me. My breath came in shallow gasps as I crept back to bed, my body trembling with adrenaline. Lying beside him, I listened to his steady breathing. He looked peaceful in sleep, but now I knew better. His peace was built on buried lies, sealed in hidden letters and photographs. I closed my eyes, but the images of Anna's smile, Claire's warning, and Michael's cold denial swirled behind my eyelids. The puzzle was no longer a question of whether Michael was hiding something. It was a question of how long before his secret consumed us both. And as I drifted into uneasy half-sleep, one thought sharpened into certainty. I couldn't keep silent any longer. It was time to set a trap. The photographs haunted me. Anna's smile, Michael's arm around her shoulders, the inked warning from Claire. All of it weighed like stone on my chest. I could no longer cling to denial. My husband wasn't just hiding secrets. He was living inside them. But how do you force the truth out of someone who's mastered the art of lies? The next morning I called Detective Carter. My voice trembled as I whispered into the phone. I found something in Michael's study. Letters, photographs. He knew Anna. Silence hung for a moment before Carter replied, steady and firm. That changes everything. We need to push him. But he'll never confess if I confront him directly. He has to believe he's safe. Can you play along? The thought chilled me. Pretend loyalty while waiting for him to incriminate himself? It felt like stepping into a cage with a predator. Yet, what choice did I have? Yes, I said finally. I'll do it. Carter explained the plan. I would encourage Michael to talk, to reminisce. My role was to act curious but supportive, giving him enough space to lower his guard. Meanwhile, Carter would be nearby, listening, waiting for the moment Michael revealed too much. I agreed, though fear gnawed at my insides. Every lie I told, Michael carried risk. One slip and he would know. That evening I cooked his favorite meal, roast chicken with rosemary, mashed potatoes, a glass of red wine. He walked into the kitchen, raising an eyebrow. What's the occasion? Just us, I said with a smile. I thought maybe we could talk about the past. He stiffened, but the scent of dinner softened him. The past? Yes, I said lightly, forcing warmth into my tone. We've been married for years, Michael, but I don't know much about your life before me. I want to. His eyes studied mine, searching for suspicion. I kept my face calm, my smile gentle. Slowly, he nodded. Over dinner. I asked harmless questions at first. College memories, his first job. He answered smoothly but always in broad strokes, never in detail. I laughed in the right places, touched his hand when he hesitated. Feigned admiration. Then I steered closer. And what about old friends? You must have had someone special once. Michael's hand froze on his wine glass. For a moment I thought he'd shut down, but then he leaned back, smirking. There was someone, he admitted. Anna. She was complicated. My heart skipped, though I kept my smile steady. Complicated. Oh, she wanted too much attention, too many promises. People like her can destroy you if you let them. Every word pressed into me like ice. My fingers tightened on my fork. But you cared for her? He chuckled darkly. Care isn't the right word. Let's just say, I kept her close until I couldn't anymore. My chest constricted. He hadn't said it outright, but the implication was there. I leaned closer, lowering my voice. Michael, what happened to her? His eyes glinted, sharp and dangerous. You shouldn't ask questions you don't want answers to, Emily. A knock at the door cut through the tension. My heart lurched. Carter. Michael rose, suspicion flashing in his gaze. Who could that be? I forced a laugh. Probably a neighbor. He opened the door. Carter stood there, casual in plain clothes, holding a folder. Evening. Sorry to intrude, Mr. Dawson. I wanted to drop something off for your wife. Michael's jaw tightened, but he stepped aside reluctantly. As Carter entered, his eyes met mine, a silent signal. I nodded faintly, my hands trembling under the table. Michael folded his arms. Detective, you people don't give up, do you? Carter's voice was calm, measured. We only persist when there's truth to uncover. Michael laughed, but it was hollow. Then you'll be searching a long time. I felt the air in the room tighten. The trap had been set. Now it was only a matter of whether Michael would spring it, or whether he'd sense it and turn on me first. The tension in the living room was thick enough to choke. Michael stood rigid near the doorway, arms crossed, his gaze darting between me and Detective Carter. His charm was gone now, replaced by the sharp, watchful eyes of a man cornered. Carter placed the folder on the table, opening it slowly. I thought you'd want to see this, Mr. Dawson. Photographs, letters, reminders of people you once knew. Michael's jaw tightened. You've been in my house. I don't need to be, Carter replied evenly. Your wife found enough. My breath hitched. Michael's head turned toward me, his eyes narrowing. In that moment, I felt naked, exposed, every ounce of loyalty I had feigned unraveling before him. You went through my study, he said, voice low, dangerous. I swallowed hard. I had to, Michael. You wouldn't tell me the truth. He laughed then, a cold, brittle sound. Truth? You think you can handle the truth? His hands clenched at his sides. Anna wasn't who you think she was. None of them were. Then tell us, Carter pressed, his tone sharp. Tell us what happened to Anna Mitchell. Michael's shoulders rose and fell, his breath quickening. For a moment I thought he'd deny it all again, but something inside him cracked. She wanted to leave, he spat. After everything I gave her, she wanted someone else. She thought she could walk away, make me look like a fool. I couldn't let that happen. The words hit me like a blow. My stomach turned, my skin cold. You killed her, Carter said. Flatly, Michael's eyes flashed. She forced my hand, she pushed me until I had no choice. You don't understand, she belonged to me. I staggered back, tears burning my eyes. Michael, you told me you never knew her. He looked at me then, and for the first time I saw not the man I'd married, but the predator beneath the mask. I lied because you wouldn't understand. You never do. All you see are villains and victims. But love isn't that simple. Love is possession, and possession means never letting go. His words twisted through me, breaking whatever fragile thread of marriage had remained. Carter stepped forward. Where is she, Michael? Where is Anna's body? Michael's lips pressed into a thin line. He said nothing, but his silence screamed, guilt. Carter's voice hardened. This ends now. You've hidden long enough. Michael's laughter returned, unsteady, cracking under its own weight. You think you've cornered me? You think you've won? You'll never find her. No one will. That's why I'm still here and she's not. The room spun. My perfect home, my perfect marriage, it was all built on the grave of another woman. My legs trembled beneath me, but rage surged through my veins, strong enough to hold me upright. You destroyed everything, I whispered. Not just Anna's life, but mine too. You made me doubt myself, question my sanity, while all along you were hiding this. Michael's eyes flickered, but he said nothing. The silence between us felt like the final fracture of our marriage. Carter stepped closer, pulling out a pair of handcuffs. Michael Dawson, you're under arrest. Michael bolted. In one swift movement, he shoved past Carter, the coffee table crashing aside. The front door slammed as he fled into the night. Carter swore, racing after him. But I remained frozen, my body shaking. The truth was finally out, but it hadn't brought peace. Only devastation. I stood in the wreckage of the living room, my reflection fractured in the shards of the fallen glass table. The perfect wife, the perfect marriage, lies, every one of them. Michael's secret was no longer hidden. It was alive, burning through the ruins of my life, leaving nothing but ash in its wake. And as sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing louder with every second, one thought consumed me. The truth had surfaced, but justice was far from finished. The night air was sharp with sirens. Blue and red lights pulsed against the walls of my once perfect home, throwing fractured shadows across the living room. I stood in the doorway, wrapped in my robe, trembling as officers swept past me. Detective Carter returned minutes later, his expression grim. He's gone. Slipped into the woods behind the cul-de-sac. We'll find him, but... He trailed off, studying me. But what? But he's clever? But he's dangerous? Or worse? But you don't really want us to catch him, do you? I couldn't answer. My voice had deserted me. Hours later, the house emptied of police, leaving me alone with the silence and the smell of overturned wine. I walked through the wreckage of my living room. The shattered glass, the scattered photographs, Carter's folder left behind. Michael's face stared up from one of the pictures. Young, smiling, arms draped over Anna Mitchell. I knelt down, my fingers brushing the glossy paper. The man in the photo looked happy, human, not the monster who confessed hours earlier. I sank to the floor, torn between grief and fury. By morning, the media had caught the scent. Reporters circled the neighborhood like vultures, cameras flashing, voices demanding quotes. "Mrs. Dawson, did you know about your husband's past? Do you believe he killed Anna Mitchell? Are you cooperating with the police?" Shut the blinds and retreated deeper inside the house. Their words weren't questions. They were accusations. And though I knew I was innocent, shame burned through me. I had lived beside him for years, blind to the darkness. Or maybe not blind. Maybe I had seen fragments and chosen silence. Detective Carter returned later that day, his tone gentler now. "We'll keep searching," he assured me. "But Michael has a head start. He knows how to disappear." I nodded, though my chest tightened. "What happens when you find him?" "Then justice is served." The word justice rang heavy in the air. I wondered what it would cost me. That night, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the faint outline of the stain in the garage floor, scrubbed clean, but still visible to me. My marriage lay in ruins, my life exposed. And yet somewhere beneath, the horror, a treacherous thought took root. What if I protected him? Not because he deserved it, but because I couldn't let go of the man I once believed he was. The man who laughed at barbecues, who kissed my cheek in public, who pretended we were a perfect couple. If I handed him to justice, I would be handing away the illusion of everything I had built. But if I stayed silent, I would be complicit. His crime would live between us, poisoning me until I was no better than him. Justice or love. The choice clawed at me. The following week blurred into whispers. And waiting, Carter called with updates, sightings, false leads, dead ends. Each time I prayed for resolution, though I didn't know which resolution I wanted. One evening, as the sun bled orange across the horizon, I stepped into the backyard. The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment I swore I saw him, a shadow at the edge of the woods, watching. My breath caught. My lips parted. "Michael," I whispered. The shadow lingered, then vanished into the trees. I didn't tell Carter. Not that night, not ever. Because in that fleeting moment, I realized my choice had already been made. I wouldn't call it love anymore. What I felt was darker, heavier, but I couldn't condemn him, not fully, not when his shadow still lingered in my heart, tethering me to the ghost of the marriage I once clung to. I returned inside, locked the door, and sat in the quiet. The decision burned in me like a brand. I would keep his secret. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Reporters stopped calling. The police still searched, but the urgency faded. Life in the neighborhood returned to normal, or at least the appearance of it. People still waved when I carried groceries. I smiled back, the same way I always had. Behind closed doors, though. Silence pressed against the walls. The perfect home remained standing. But inside it was hollow, haunted by a truth I chose not to share. As I lay in bed each night, I listened to the hum of the house and wondered if somewhere, in another city, Michael was doing the same, breathing freely because I had let him. Justice had slipped through my fingers. Love had warped into something unrecognizable, and I was left alone with the cost of marital truth. The perfect wife, the perfect lie,